Straight up, if you will. At this time, we're going to go ahead and bring our meeting to order. Yes. In this case, Ms. City Clerk, would you please call the? Oh, okay.
If you'd like to proceed.
You,
Yes.
actually, I can.
First item on our work session agenda for this evening is a discussion of our fire pay plan.
Sorry.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Yes,
Good
ma'am.
evening.
Tonight, I stand before you to provide the presentation of our revised recommendation for our fire proposed pay plan. Tonight's presentation agenda objectives. Yes, it is now. We're going to just take a quick look at the pay plan. We're going to talk a little bit about the recommendations for our revisions. We'll review what the proposed revised pay plan will be, and then we'll talk a little bit about how we're going to implement it. The first thing that I want us to take a look at is our current fire personnel. Right now, they are budgeted at 48 positions. Based on the new fire station that we're proposing for next year and staffing of it, they requested 6 additional positions, which will bring their total complement to 57. So first, the reason that we are proposing this pay plan is because we implemented the current pay plan, which you'll see before you, where we have our fire recruits that are coming in at 43.2 and our firefighter certified that are coming in at 46.5. We later on received additional reports from other surrounding counties as they were implementing their new budgets, and we saw that a lot of our fire personnel salaries were increasing. What we certainly want to do is ensure that we are meeting the city's retention goals along with our recruitment goals, and we want to ensure that our well-qualified, committed firefighters are staying here within the city. So because of that, and based on the salary survey that we did, this is the new proposed salary. So we now have our fire recruits coming in at 49.7, and our firefighter certified coming in at 52.4. We are looking at this pay plan, and we now believe that the city is in a more marketable space in order to recruit our new firefighters. We also believe that this new fire pay plan will improve our motivation and retention within our current fire department. We would like to recommend implementing this new fire pay plan as of January 3rd, 2024. And the reason for that is our fire department does currently have some staffing changes that will take place prior to the end of December. So we want to make sure that those salary changes are finalized before we implement the new schedule. Of course, I don't make any changes to any of our employee salaries without meeting with them individually. So as we implement this schedule, we will certainly meet with all of our fire employees individually to ensure that their salaries are correct. In talking about the last bullet, I do want to add just a little bit more context when we talk about the fact that we'll look at public safety salaries more holistically. This year, we looked at our police department and we increased their schedule because we also had salary surveys that were coming in where our police, certified police officers, their salaries were higher. We also had some operational challenges within our police department. We had a lot of employees that were out on leave. We had some workers' compensation injuries. And we actually had a lot of our police command that was on the street working calls. And so when we implemented the new police schedule, we found it to be very influential because we were able to maintain retention. Our police department is almost at full complement, and we had a lot of our police officers that decided to stay because we increased the salaries. We want the same for our fire department. We look at our public safety as one entity, not separately. So of course, going forward, if there are any changes to either of them, we will look at both salary schedules more holistically going forward. I'll take any questions you may have.
Does any member of the council have any questions about this item? Ms. Davis, go ahead.
First and foremost, I want to say to the HR department, how impressed I am with the department, the operations, how you stay abreast of what's going on around us, and how much you care for our employees. And so much appreciative of your dedication and your whole department's dedication. I just have some clarifications, real simple clarifications. Now, let's go back to the position slide. So the 57 are the ones we have now, right? That was in the fiscal 24-year budget, right?
Yes, ma'am, along with the request for the additional 9
Okay,
for mid-year.
okay. So that was already in the budget?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, in your research as it relates to the pay, and I know recruitment is really tight for firefighters, did you also compare the total benefit package, or did you focus on the salaries, or how did you come to your decision that the increase is definitely needed for our firefighters?
Certainly. Well, I can tell you that the city of Fairburn is actually trending because we're probably one of the only municipalities that don't require our employees to contribute into their pension. So that is certainly a plus for us. In addition to that, when we're talking about our benefits package, we're one of the few employers that if an employee starts on, say, November 29th, their benefits are effective December 1. They're not having to wait 30 days in the first of the month. So for some, it's about a 45-day waiting period for their benefits. So not only did we look at some of their starting salaries, we looked at also incentives, bonuses, and things of that nature. Some of those things we are not able to implement right now just because it is a huge budgetary impact, but we are looking to have conversations as it relates to that, again, holistically, for our police and our fire department.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Chris, did you want to add anything to that?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. From an administration standpoint, the first question we ask is why are our firefighters leaving? And when we looked at the municipalities that Ms. Champagne surveyed, a lot of them had salaries that were way above where we were. And so our first task was to make sure that we can make our salaries marketable in line with other cities so that we could retain the firefighters that we have. We have lost a few to surrounding agencies, but I think that this is a good step in the right direction to potentially get those firefighters back.
Mr. Whitmore and then Mr. Heath.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, thank you that you do through HR, ma'am. And I just have a couple of questions. Well, first of all, statements. So I was glad to see, my colleague already covered it, that we are looking at 48 positions to 57, which is already included in the currently new budget.
Yes, sir.
So that's great. And then also, I definitely want to applaud you. I know you went through PD, all right? And in the back of my mind, I was saying, well, why weren't we doing them simultaneously? Because they are public safety, all right? So when we think about public safety, we always look at both entities, and we kind of mirror each other when we're doing things. But the fact that we're here today, it just speaks volumes, so I never had to ask that question, all right? And I thank you for that. And I heard you say that the salaries now is marketable, and we are retaining. You mentioned that in the police department, we're almost at 100%.
Yes.
All right, and where do we currently stand in the fire department?
Currently, we have about 3 vacancies in our fire department. However, we also have positions that are vacant because of promotional opportunities. And so again, that's one of the reasons why on that last page, we're looking to implement this January 3rd to allow our fire chief to be able to work through those staffing changes before we actually implement the plan.
Okay. And if you can go back to the other slide that has the breakdown of positions, not positions, but the training, recruit, and there we go. So let's talk a little bit about this. Now, I know that Chief Robinson has worked hard to bring a lot of the training that is now being offered for our firefighters here into the city of Fairburn, which is great. Your EMTs and your advanced certifications and all those things. Currently, what do we have in HR for any employee that we have invested time and money in training and they decide to leave?
I guess I need a little bit more clarity to your question. Are you asking, are we retrieving anything back once they leave? Or I can just say that when we go through the budgetary process from our city administration, even to my office, we certainly encourage all of our department directors to embed within their budget, allocate monies to go toward professional development, whether that is becoming a part of a professional membership or sending them to career development opportunities or other professional development opportunities. That's inclusive of conferences, webinars, additional training, whether it's virtual and or on-site. So the city does invest in our employees as it relates to that.
And that's great, but I think my question is more directed towards, okay, for example, how long is the training for advanced EMT?
All right, good evening.
Good evening.
So advanced EMT training would be almost a year, and your firefighter training would be 6 to 9 weeks, depending on the department, if we teach in-house or we send them to the Public Safety Training Center in Forsyth. I think what he's referring to is the contract you all helped me with. So we do put our firefighters on a contract because what we don't want to do is be here as a training ground, because we have a good reputation throughout this area, the metro area, as far as how we train our men and the education we give them. Roughly, I think it's 3,500, but I will say, we discussed at our monthly meeting about increasing that, because everybody's increasing on us as far as charges for certifications, material, and different things. That'll be something I'll cover with y'all later on.
And that's the line I was going down, because I know when you initially introduced this particular training for our firefighters, we paid X amount, but we all know that everything has gone up. So my curiosity kind of perked when I reviewed this, and I was wondering, number one, about the contract, because I don't want to have a revolving door of training people, and then after they get trained, they see an opportunity somewhere else and they say, okay, see ya. After we spent 12 months of training that individual for EMT, advanced EMT, then if they decide to leave 3 months after completion of that training, what do we do?
When we bring a firefighter recruit in to the department off the street, they are required to sign a 2-year contract. So at the conclusion of their training, they are mandated essentially to stay with the city of Fairburn for 2 years. If they decide to leave within that 2-year time period, they do have to reimburse the city for whatever money is owed.
And that was where I was going with that. I just wanted to make sure we just didn't have an open revolving door. And I think you have something else that you want to add?
And that's the same for the police department. So when we hire police officers and send them through the academy, they also sign a 2-year contract, and they're mandated to stay with us for 2 years, or they will have to reimburse the city.
Yeah. And that's beautiful, because I can think back some years ago, even with our current chief, and we always looking at preparing people for that next level. And Chief just happened to go through some advanced training, but I know he had to sign a document, and I knew he wasn't going anywhere. He's been here since day one. Yeah. To me, it's important to ensure that while we're investing in our employees, we also protect ourselves so we don't lose them before we get some payback of what we invested in them. So you answered my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Heath?
Yes, I'm a retired police officer, so I know about rank and file in the police department. But I've noticed here that you have a fire deputy chief, a fire marshal, a division chief, a fire battalion chief, and then you got 2 captains, 5 lieutenants, 6 sergeants, and you just asked for 3 more. Why so much supervision, and can you tell me what the difference is in the titles?
So, fire department's rank structure is titled differently from PD, but we're really the same. For example, a lieutenant for the police department is what we call the battalion chief, and he's the shift supervisor.
Oh, okay.
Yes. The division chief over training, we have a division chief that handles the training for
Okay.
Public Safety Training Center,
Yes.
and he also handles the training for ISO. That's a task in itself, of making sure all the guys that are training is up to speed. And as you all know, we have automatic aid agreements with surrounding agencies. When ISO comes, we have to pull all the training from those departments as well in our files when we come up on the rating. So it's a tedious process.
Okay.
And he also has a captain position
Okay.
to have help with training and
Great.
documentation. The other position, of course, is the fire marshal. His role is very important as well, and he has a captain position as well.
Okay.
And then you have the deputy chief, which is the number 2 man.
Okay.
And then, of course, you all know who I am.
Thank you. That helps clarify things for me.
And I was just going to mention to members of council, with Chief Sapp, was it Thursday? And so one of the things that he brought up that I wasn't aware is that apparently because of the level of training, I guess in this case that's actually being seen on video, and I guess that a lot of recruits are sharing, we seem to have an influx of men and women that left here trying to come back, if I understand, substantially amount. And so in this case, which basically in this case my assessment of that was, yes, the pay is competitive, but in this case, the organization is finally has made a mark in the industry to the point where men that have left here actually want to come back. One of the things, too, that is helping us, and again, I have to give this council the credit of it as well, apparently a lot of the equipment that's been bought that we take for granted, that was, some of it was actually shown during the Fairburn Festival, some of it's actually en route. A lot of the other agencies, and Chief wouldn't say this publicly, but I will, and say that some of the other agencies are basically asking, how does this government, how do you get that kind of support legislatively to purchase that type of equipment? And so right now, as an agency right now, the fire department I'm referring to right now, the word is out right now is that not only we're training hard and that we're, I understand if I talk to Chief Staff, the level of physical fitness that's now required, that's not often required by a lot of other agencies. I haven't grew up for firefighting my dad, and so standard that's been raised for a lot of the younger guys that we have now has basically now turned Fairburn up to another whole level. So,
Mayor, if I could add something to that, I wanted to take this opportunity to really thank you as council members, repeating the fact that we've been able to do their jobs may seem something basic, but it's really significant, and that's due to the support of this council. Many of you have probably followed the news and know that there's a major jurisdiction in our community that is closing fire stations because they do not have enough apparatus. Yeah. So the fact that you've been able to support other firefighters see that. When we have those push, it's not just a ceremony to secure and make sure our public is safe. But other agencies see that, and it's part of the culture. And as it relates to salary, we always have to give a nod to that, because in public safety, it's a constant thing of making sure that we're at market level. But I don't think that's the only reason either in public safety or employee-wide, that people want to work here. It is all the other things. It's the culture. And so just a nod to thank Mayor and Council for the support, because that has played a huge role in our fire department being a place where people want to work.
One,
I want to make sure, did anybody on this end? Yeah, of course, go ahead, Mr. Chong. Back to you, Mr. Whitmore.
A couple questions. Is it true that part of our ISO rating is they evaluate the positions that we have and the level of training for the positions?
That is true.
Okay.
They evaluate our staffing for the size town we have, the positions, training, the call volume. It's a lot.
And I will say that has been part of our motivation in ensuring that we brought up the fire level it is today. It has been a long time coming, and we've had some challenges and some obstacles and some pushback, quite frankly, when it came to the fire department. So I'm very pleased to see this. I am very pleased to see the equipment that we are requiring. I'm even more pleased that we are about to break ground on a new, and I hope, green energy, green building fire station. But we'll have a different discussion about that. Yes. And the major jurisdiction, it was all in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, okay? So everybody knows who that is, and that's the city of Atlanta. And that is because there was, I often talk about we're pushing the can down the road. And when you do that, it catches up with you. And then you have these major catastrophes and these crises for which you have to respond to, which gets very, very expensive. And if you plan for it and do small bits at a time, then we're able to, buy an engine this year, increase salary of recruits the next year, because we're constantly talking about it and we're constantly planning for it. So it is long, long overdue, and I want to congratulate the chief because the other success that we've had is that he is notorious in acquiring grants.
Yes.
Okay? So, and that's why we can tout the success that we're having today. So, yes, you have my full support and continue that work. And I look forward to hearing about the fire station.
One additional thing I just wanted to make mention, because this occurred last night. The training is significant and it's impactful. There was a fire in an apartment on Clay Street last night, in an older apartment building that did not have firewalls, which means the fire can jump from unit to unit very, very quickly. Our fire station got the call and responded and was able to limit that fire to one unit. Now, that's one family displaced, and they're getting help and resources. But had it not been for adequate training and quick response, that entire building would have gone up. And I just wanted to give kudos to the crew. I'm not sure which crew it was, Chief, that responded to that Clay Street fire.
As I get older, I can't keep up with them either.
But I mentioned that made me aware of that last night. And then today, for those of you who may have driven through downtown, we had a vehicle incident downtown where a vehicle was overturned. Same type of quick response. Our fire department was on it within minutes. And so we've got a wonderful fire department, not just because of the equipment. Chief does an amazing job, but we've had 2 recent recruit classes of some real young go-getters. And they get out there and they really do a good job because of the training. So just kudos to them for the quick response and the way they're keeping our city safe.
And I'd just like to say, as we close this item up, a thing too that wasn't mentioned tonight was, and I want to thank those neighboring agencies that came to our rescue, 23 months ago. But what has happened now, as a result of the training that's taking place, we've had to basically respond to other agencies, in this case, other cities in this case, and our equipment has been the difference of day and night at those locations. And again, I'll leave the chief if you want to identify who they are, but
Well, Mayor, I will say this, them coming to help us 23 months ago, you best believe we're returning the favor now. We're being called a good bit to help out, but it comes from the training, it comes from the support of you all, Mayor and Council, my support from our city administrator, our assistant city administrator, and HR keeps us straight over there too, make sure we don't get in any trouble over there. So it's been a good ride here. You all know I've been here from day one.
Oh, yeah.
And I could publicly say this is the best I've had in almost 18 years.
That's awesome.
okay. Wanna go- Oh, I'm sorry, sir, I apologize. You had another comment. Go ahead, sir, I'm sorry.
Well, my colleague kind of brought up the one thing that I was going to come back with, but that was about all the grants and everything that you research, find, and get in here to assist with that. And I do recall at one point in time, there was an agency that was getting all new equipment, and we were in the market of getting all 4 of their vehicles that were in pretty good condition, but pandemic hit and everything else. But we did better than that by going the way that you kind of directed that department. And the other thing I would just like to say is just, for me, is very sobering when I see a retired firefighter that sits in this galley as well in support of you. And I know Walt pays close attention to what's happening within that fire department. And every time that we have a
Police.
conversation, there's always a pleasant conversation because there's nothing negative about the fire department. So I know that he watches what you do with a hawk's eye. And I know that you handle your department very well. And I just want to publicly say thank you for all you do, and you and your crew. So it means a lot.
Absolutely. I'll go to you, and then I'll come to Ms. Jones.
Yeah, I want to just add what a colleague said in reference to the grants. I wrote it down, and then she said it. But you are the grant master, and so we appreciate you and all the things that you do, and you look out for, for grants and stuff. So we really appreciate that, Chief. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Go ahead.
So could you, since we have time, could you speak to what's happening with the proposed training center that we had talked about? Just kind of where that is and what some of the plans are in the timeline.
Well, we have put in the budget to bid out the welders to build the building, but we'll use that for our annual training. Oh, I'm sorry. We will use that for our annual training, where we won't have to take all our units to Peachtree City to do the training that's required by the state and by ISO. Everything will be done in the city, and it's going to help us to still leave units in the city to protect us and conduct our training like we're supposed to. We'll be able to offer classes. My goal, with the help of you all, to make us a adjunct training center where we'll be able to teach classes in the city. The only thing is the state requires us to offer the class to other agencies, which we would. That wouldn't be a problem to come in, because we still have instructors, and we'll be having more fire instructors soon. All of my officers are being required to go to school for that. At no cost, because we're going to a state-funded class. Okay. We're also going to host extrication training. As you all know, we're on the interstate almost every day. One day could be worse than the other. Accident with entrapments. And I'm not going to sound gruesome. I know they've told me how to, hey, stop right there when I tell the story. I get excited. But it's nothing for us to roll up on the interstate with a tractor trailer on top of victims. And they're still alive, and we want to get them out alive. And in most cases, we do that. All are not good stories, but for the most part, we have a lot to do here. Fire department, and I have to include our comrades at the police department. When we get out there on that interstate, it's dangerous out there.
Yeah.
Me and Chief Mazzillo, we worry about our guys every day when we hit that interstate at any given time. Even if we shut the traffic down, you have people that are not patient will come around our barriers or come around the police and fire trucks. So it's tedious out there. So we train the guys to look while you're working when we get out there on the interstate.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I know we are expecting ISO sometime during 2024. I would love for us to kind of have in place our plan for the training facility and, you know, how we're going to conduct that. So maybe that's something we can discuss at our strategic planning retreat. And so I just want to throw that out there.
That's a great
Put it on there.
suggestion, Councilwoman Porter-Jones. Thank you for that. And that would be a great place for us to have that discussion in detail because we would need to build that into our capital improvement plan with some of the other things that we've previously discussed. But yeah, we can certainly put together a plan that will help us to move that forward.
Thank you.
Mr. Heath?
Chief, what is our current ISO rating?
Currently, we're still number one.
Number one.
For the record.
Yes, yes.
Great question.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief. And Ms. Chris has another item, right?
One quick thing, we just wanted to finalize the fire play plan. City administration, along with our finance director, HR, and our fire chief, we are finalizing the budgetary impact as it relates to the proposed plan, where we will be budgeting for our firefighters certified at the advanced level, so it'll be the F3. So we are working through finalizing those numbers.
Thank you. Chris, go ahead.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Ms. Abernathy is back with us.
Thank you. Yeah, man.
I don't think she believed me when I told her she was duly missed. I just want to provide a quick update on our small business grant program. As you know, council approved for us to allocate $100,000 towards our small businesses here in Fairburn. Since our application period started November 1st at 9 a.m., our vendor has received to date 59 applications, totaling a requested amount of just over $641,000. So at this time, based on the overwhelming need for support, staff is requesting or will close the applications or put them on pause this Friday, November 17th at 5 p.m. This will allow the vendor to adequately vet each application to ensure that the applicant meets the eligibility requirements to receive the grant funding. And at that time, all award and non-award notifications will be sent out the first week of December. And so I just wanted to put that on Mayor and Council's radar in case you do receive questions. I would say this has been a huge relief and great opportunity for our small businesses. But as you know, we only have so much that can go so far, and it was on a first-come, first-served basis. But we're really excited about the direction of the Small Business Grant Program. But effective this Friday, November 17th at 5 p.m., applications will be on pause so that we can vet those that we've already received for potential funding.
And would you just, for those that probably didn't pay attention, in previous meetings, would you just give a brief, real short overview of what is the objective of that program?
Well, the objective of the Small Business Grant Program was to provide some relief to some of our businesses. One category is capital improvements, where a business can get up to $25,000 to improve their brick and mortar site. The other one was for relocation in an effort to increase the number of businesses to the city of Fairburn, and they could be awarded up to $25,000 for relocation. There is rental assistance of up to $5,000. There was payroll assistance of up to $10,000, and then the small business incubator assistance for up to $5,000. So I can tell you, based on the breakdown, I think majority of the applicants are for the capital improvement program, but we've realized in monthly or in weekly meetings with the vendor, we definitely have to vet the applications because quite a few of them either the city of South Fulton or Union City or one of our neighboring jurisdictions. And so we do anticipate that $641,000 number to come down, but we want to give them adequate time to be able to vet the applications that we've received to date.
Does any members of council, go ahead, Ms. Jones.
What was the budget again?
$300,000.
Oh, wow, twice that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then, okay, so that number will decrease based on those who are not within our jurisdiction. But could you let us know then what that final number might be?
Absolutely.
Even though it may be greater than the budget?
Yes.
Agreed, and we will look at that, Councilwoman Portis Jones. From the very outset, we knew that the request would exceed the amount of available funding. That was always anticipated. We initially thought we would leave the application window open for 30 days. We made it 13 days. And so that's a good thing. And so we'll look at opportunities to maybe see if we can enhance that program to some degree. But we also have other ARPA plan commitments as well. And so there's a limit to how much we can do for one single program. But it is a good sign that it has been such a significant response. By the time those who aren't within our city limits are weeded out, applications that for various reasons don't meet the requirements. So there will be some of that as well. You'll see that number come down. It may still be north of the 300,000 we have allocated, but I think you'll see a significant decrease. And then we will, of course, have a full report once we begin awarding those grants to how many businesses were awarded, in what categories. All that information will come forward as well.
And one other point, all of the awards are up to a certain amount, but the vendor did budget at the maximum. And so we do anticipate that number to drop some, because we may have a business with a capital project that's only 10,000. So they wouldn't get the additional 15,000 that has been allocated. So we do anticipate additional decreases in that number.
Okay, great. And then we also had a lengthy discussion about stating what the requirements for, was it 2 years? If they're required to stay in the city for 2 years to participate in the program? And what is the reimbursement or the policy if, for whatever reason, they fail to meet that obligation?
So to be awarded the small business grant, we're asking currently that you be in good standing with the city and current on all either your tax bills, correct? In speaking with the vendor, we have not moved to it being a loan, because then we would need to find a bank that could actually service that loan, because the city could not do that. We're still operating as it being a grant for our small businesses. We are asking them to operate their businesses within the city limits, knowing that some of the applications are outside of our city, but we have not mandated that they stay open for 2 years. Due to unforeseen circumstances, is that a liability, or is that something we want to put on our small businesses if they incur a death in the family, or if the business owner passes away for something that's unforeseen? Who do we then hold accountable for that? And the whole goal was to increase business opportunities within the city of Fairburn, but also giving our current businesses an opportunity to make necessary improvements or to meet or to come out of COVID in a more positive direction. So it has not gone into the direction of a loan. Actually, the vendor kind of encouraged that the city not go in that direction based on her inside knowledge of what has happened in other municipalities, but we are making a good faith effort to make sure that we are awarding businesses that have a solid footing within the city of Fairburn that actually want to be here.
No, I totally agree with that. This is the Small Business Grants Program, so absolutely. But I don't think I made up the 2-year. Did the vendors say that in the presentation? Maybe she was referencing some other municipality that she had worked with?
We'll go back and look at that more
Okay.
closely, Council.
If I remember correctly, that's exactly, I'm almost sure I remember her mentioning 2 years from some other agency, though. And the reason, only reason I say that is because at the time she gave us the presentation, and looking at the economic indicators from, my wife is in that industry, we're looking at a possibility of recession down the road. I'm just gonna say it publicly. And so that, again, as much as accountability, I'm actually in agreement with you. The problem with that, with the small business, if you end up with a recession real soon, you're probably gonna end up with some businesses closing up, unfortunately. I mean, that's something just unfortunately, that's gonna probably happen.
And all I'm asking is that whatever our intent, let's be intentional about stating that. It is a grant program, and it is, grants are forgiven.
Right.
All right, so let's say that, right? And we don't have to wonder whether that's the case or not, because we've established that as a policy, and everyone knows that going in.
So I think I agree with you wholeheartedly, Councilwoman Portis Jones, and let me be as clear as I can to reiterate the point, administrative-wise, and trying to facilitate that, as Ms. Chris just referenced, through a bank, and then converting federal dollars from a grant to a loan. It was too cumbersome and had too many legal questions, and so this is a grant, and to your point, grants are forgiven. We have made a very deliberate effort with this vendor to go through significant one-on-one information sessions with each applicant. We held a couple of information sessions here in council chambers with all of the businesses who were interested in applying. So there's been a very deliberate information campaign as it relates to those applicants so that they understand that it's a grant. And so I appreciate you bringing that up so we could add some additional clarity. But in all of the communications that I'm aware of that have gone to all of the applicants, all the training, and they conduct one-on-one they walk each applicant through the application process as they're vetting so that they can ensure that all those boxes are checked. All those points of information are reiterated with each applicant individually.
And we 2 days, so the vendor is contacting, see something in their application to give them an opportunity to fix it as opposed to just denying the applicant.
And I will share with you that among those applicants so far, and we don't know who may be awarded or not, are a number of businesses that we know have been in Fairburn for a long time. Yes. So these are some very recognizable businesses that have been in our community for years. The prospect of them leaving is probably very, very low because they've been here for quite a long time. A significant portion of our well-known Fairburn businesses that are part of that pool of applicants.
Great, thank you.
Any other members, any other questions by council? Okay, seeing none, we've got about 15 minutes before we'll come back to a regular meeting. Thank you so much. It's 7 o'clock sharp. We'll bring our meeting to order at this time. Bringing the meeting to order for the mayor and council of the city of Fairburn. At this time, Ms. James, city clerk, would you please call the roll of the city council?
Yes. The Honorable Mayor Pro Tem Linda J. Davis.
Present.
The Honorable Pat Palin.
Present.
The Honorable Alex Heath.
Present.
The Honorable Ulysses J. Smallwood.
Present.
Honorable Hattie Portis Jones.
Present.
The Honorable James Whitmore.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Okay, thank you so much. If everyone would please stand and ask Pastor Ingrid Thompson of Harvest Reign, would you please come forth?
We could all bow our heads for a word of prayer. Father, we honor you and we bless you this evening. We thank you for the city of Fairburn, Father, and what you're doing through our honorable mayor and council. We pray that today that you will give them wisdom and guidance and direction. This is, Lord God, for the city. We thank you for your will being done in this meeting, and this in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
At this time, we don't have any presentations. Members of council, you have the printed agenda before you. Can I entertain a motion to adopt the city council agenda?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? That motion carries. And again, Mr. James, we have no members, no one public comment?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. At this time, I would like to entertain a motion to approve the city council minutes for the city council meeting that commenced on October the 23rd, 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved.
If there's a second,
Second.
any corrections? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. At this time, we have the Ms. Denise, first item.
The first item is a rezoning request from PD Commercial to PD Residential Durham Lakes Development Area 5.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Brookins, go ahead.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Good evening, good afternoon.
Evening, afternoon. It's been going, I think we started this project in the afternoon now. What year is it again? Goodness. Well, first, I want to just take a moment to thank the community for being so actively involved in trying to make sure that their voices were heard, and the developer for working with the community to come up with some conditions that have their support. So I want to make applicant the applicant is requesting approval to amend and rezone the master plan development PDO2 zoning district of Durham Lakes. There are quite a few items that we look at when looking at a rezoning. We look at the future land use designation. We look at the surrounding developments. Of course, there's a great deal of community input involved, including community listening sessions and feedback. 2 of those were conducted, along with a number of conversations with the HOA Leadership Board to make sure that the end product was something that the community was comfortable with. So initially, when the application was submitted, there were properties or townhomes that were adjacent to the existing community. That was one of the things that the community specifically said that they wanted to make sure that in terms of noise, recreational amenities, that those things were not a part of this development because they wanted to maintain their sort of normal existing conditions. So the applicant did remove all of the townhomes that are adjacent to the existing community. They have a passive park. One of the conditions originally from staff was that there was some sort of amenity. So the community has mentioned that they would prefer that that just be a passive park. So the applicant made sure to include that. They increased the size of the lot width to accommodate 2 car garages, which was one of the things that was really important to council. This was the original elevations. Because a lot of the character of the existing neighborhood includes brick, these were significantly modified, along with a lot of significant architectural detailing to the garages. So the applicant modified the elevations to include all brick on the front and side. So you can see the original and the new elevations. Staff recommends that mayor and council consider approval of the ordinance requested by the applicant, which would authorize the rezoning of the 13 acres. Just to make sure that we are all consistent, the applicant did provide some requested changes just to fit more with their requested elevations and size. Those changes were received just recently, so I'll try to go through as many of those as possible. No issues with recommendations 1 through 7, which would require, prior to any site disturbance, building permits being issued for the project. Staff comments listed in the report must be addressed and approved by each department. If the required traffic impact analysis determines that traffic improvements or traffic control devices are necessary at the intersection of Roosevelt Highway and John Association shall be created and shall be governed by the Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions. The homeowners association shall be responsible for the maintenance of the required buffer, detention ponds, common areas, preserve open space within the property, community amenities, alleys, pedestrian path. No more than 10% of the residential units shall be permitted to be rented as recorded in the HOA Declaration and Covenants. A fence of minimum 3 feet wide, vegetation buffer will be required on the rear of any parcel adjacent to any existing medium or low-density residential development. All proposed landscaping and fencing material must be approved by staff. A planted buffer and fencing shall be provided along Roosevelt Highway and John Rivers. All proposed landscaping and fencing material must be approved by staff. Additional landscaping may be required alongside side elevation facing the public roads. The common walking trail shall be constructed of asphalt or some other hard surface material and shall be installed prior to the issuance of the final certificate of occupancy for the first residential building. Amenities along the walking trail should include one of the following: passive park, sports court, dog park with equipment, playground, or gazebo. Pedestrian scale street lighting shall be provided along sides of the internal streets throughout the development. The front, side, and rear of the townhouse unit shall be sided. The entrance shall include ornamental plantings as approved by staff. Under no circumstances shall any mechanical equipment or related elements such as air conditioning units, meter boxes, utility, HVAC, mechanical equipment, satellite dishes, or other mechanical equipments or related elements be attached or mounted to any exterior building elevation that is visible from the pedestrian view, from required sidewalks along adjacent private streets or sidewalks abutting a common area or community amenity. Any mechanical equipment or related elements located at the finished grade shall be completely screened from the view with dense evergreen landscaping or opaque wall. So now the fun part. All utilities shall be buried underground. Parking shall be paved on concrete surfaces. The developer shall provide a minimum 5 feet sidewalk along with a landscape strip between the back of curb along the both sides of all eternal streets. One canopy street for each 50 feet of street frontage. Development standards. The applicant has asked that we add this one condition. Notwithstanding the above referenced development standards charts, the applicant shall have the option to plat the community with no individual lot, but rather a minimum unit footprint of 1,167 square feet, provided that all areas outside of the building footprint shall be deemed common area to be owned, maintained, and controlled by the mandatory homeowners association for the proposed community. So I have added those conditions in there. The applicant is asking for that minimum 1,167 square foot, minimum lot width of 24 feet, which is a little bit larger than what was originally presented. The applicant has asked that for the condition requiring bricks on all sides, that there actually be hardy on one side. That may help with some of the costs in case the traffic impact analysis does require that they install that traffic control device. Ooh, did I go? Okay. So a lot of information. But I wanted to get to the key areas, especially those changes that were recently proposed. The applicant has asked that for the off-street parking, that we remove the requirement about the minimum 25 feet back of curb, because they have presented us with the elevations that show what they will look like. They're asking that that area be removed. And also that all townhome dwelling units may have residential parking garages located in the front yard. Staff has no issue with that.
Is that your, okay. And at this point, just.
Are there any questions for, we went through 607.
Yeah, well, what I'm gonna do, that's certainly open, and at this favor, 30 minutes will be allotted for those that wants to speak in favor of this project. Would you please come forward? And would you start that clock for me? You don't have to take all 30, I promise you. It's up to you.
Good evening, everyone. Michelle Battle with Battle Law, 3562 Habersham at North Lake, Tucker, Georgia, 30084. Working on my PowerPoint here. It'll be up in a second. The last time we were here, we received back not only from City Council in regards to your desires regarding the project and some of your concerns that were raised. I hope that you can see from the staff's presentation that we took those things very seriously. We had the opportunity to go back and revisit the site plan and to address many of the issues that were raised by the community. As staff has indicated, this was our original site plan, which showed the one point of entry off of John Rivers. We did have the units that backed up to the adjacent single-family detached subdivision, and recognized that while we had provided ample open space off of kind of the teed area where this parking was at, that we really were better served to remove those units along that frontage as you entered into the community, and to create a lineal park. And so that is what we achieved by removing those units. You can see now that off to the left, when you come into the community, that is going to remain just a grassed area. It does have a walking trail. Staff has made the request that we have an additional amenity along with that walking trail, and we talked about putting that potentially around where the stormwater in front of that area. But we are very pleased with the fact that we have been able to accommodate the request not to have the rear of those residential units abutting the rears of those single-family detached homes. Otherwise, the site plan remained pretty much as it was previously. There had been some requests about having rear entry units. We didn't feel that that was really appropriate, particularly once we had relocated those other units. Creating that kind of interim alleyway just really did not seem to jive with the overall aesthetics of the neighborhood, and felt that it would just add additional impervious surface that really wasn't necessary. And so we opted not to do that, and so that's why we have asked that we be allowed to have front entry garages on all of the units. When we looked at the facade, and that was a big part of the challenge that we had, we know that you all had looked at some of the other product that Ashton presents. This is the Starlight product, but we also understood the concerns that you all had raised, and so much to the applause of Joe Ingram and the folks at Starlight, they took that very seriously and went back, and that is how we arrived at the three-sided brick look. You do see a little bit of hardy plank accent at the very top. I never can quite get what that's called, if that's the roof or the eave or the something. What? The step down, whatever it's called, at the very top. You see the little piece at the top where there's just a tad bit of hardy plank. So we feel like the overall facade design, though, really made it feel much more elevated, much more in alignment with the community in Durham Lakes and the type of development that they would expect within and or adjacent to their community. So that resulted in us having a 24-inch wide unit as opposed to the original 22. Our actually minimum heated floor area then was elevated. We had been around 1,400. We're now at 1,750. The units, again, will be 3 sides brick with the fiber cementation, so board and batten accent as shown on the submitted elevation, so that it's clear that we're not trying to do anything other than that little area that I mentioned. And that the area, the development again, will include the walking trail, and staff had indicated some type of either sports court or a dog park or a playground or a gazebo. Once again, we'll try and keep that away from the boundary of the community, because the community adjacent made it very clear that they want to try and keep that as passive as possible to reduce noise. We received support from Durham Lakes Property Owners Association. I believe they're on behalf of them, but we presented this plan to them along with the additional elevations, and we were able to receive this letter of support from them. Staff has gone over the conditions that we have, and so I won't kind of belabor the point. I think you all have in front of you the modifications that I have proposed to kind of outline what those issues are. There were 1 or 2 little things that I did want to highlight. We do have our traffic engineer here with us this evening. He's done some preliminary that based on the information that we have received. We understand the community's concerned about the intersection at John Rivers and Roosevelt. It's our feeling that to the extent that the current traffic necessitates a light, that really is the responsibility of GDOT to provide that light. We are certainly here to participate if required in that cost. We cannot bear the entirety of the cost, though. I mean, the reality of it here is that if there is this problem that exists before we even arrive, then GDOT should be paying for putting in that traffic signal. We can all work very cooperatively to ensure that that happens, because that is their responsibility. And that allowed us to be able to actually do the 3-sided brick, because that cost, remember, any cost additional that we have gets added back into the cost of the units. And so we want to try and make sure that we don't outprice from that perspective. We did mention a couple of little tweaks, and hopefully staff had no issue, like with the porches being, initially it was 4 to 6 feet deep. We asked for 4 to 7 feet deep, so that just means it's going to be a little bit deeper, bigger porch on the front. I don't think anybody would have a problem with that. There was an issue with the eaves. We have no problem with one of the requirements that the eaves are pitch roof, show overhang exterior walls a minimum of 12 inches. However, we would ask that the eaves not be required at the step downs between the interior units, just because it would really negatively impact the visual impact of the design that we have presented to you, and would not be consistent with what you've seen. And again, they've already indicated that we wanted to remove the requirement that we have the rear entry units, and that's all that the 2 items in the off-street parking addressed, and that all the townhome units can have residential parking. So, supportive of the project as presented, with the changes that we have provided to you all, and we are here to answer any additional questions that you may have. And again, we do have our traffic engineer here, as well as Joe Ingram with Starlight, to answer any additional questions that you may have this evening. Thank you.
Okay, and before I go into any questions, let me do it. Is there anyone else here that wish to speak in support of this project? Please come up, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Council,
Good evening.
Mayor. I want to thank all city members for their support.
Name for the record.
Homer Lee Knight.
Thank you.
That's here. With having the city support our community means a lot to the community and the residents. And indeed, we had the city support behind that. And the staff, Denise and her staff, really appreciate all the hard work she put together, recognizing our community and what we want. And Starlight paid attention. I want to appreciate the builder, the investor. Coming out of a construction background, I know what that means to get some of the things that we got and they gave it. So you have invested in our community, and we really appreciate that. So I think the homeowner, I talked to many of the homeowners, and they all for the project. They like what they saw, the improvement they came back with, showed that they are interested in our community, keeping the standards up. So I wanted to thank everybody that was involved in that, and I hope we can move forward with this project.
Next speaker that wants to speak in support.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Yes, sir.
My name is Rufus Wells. I live at 2057 Broadmoor Way here in Fairburn, about a half a mile from the proposed site. There's two reasons I'd like to mention on why I support. Also, in terms of helping the city to grow, we need to grow our tax base in order to spread the joy around to everyone. If we don't take advantage of opportunities to increase our tax base, it's our fault when taxes increase. And I'd also like to thank each and every one of the council members, because the plan that they ultimately came up with had your input, had development staff input, had Durham Lakes Property Owners Association input, and I think that they came up with a good project, and I thank you for your time.
Okay,
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anyone else who wants to speak in support? Okay, is there anyone here that wishes to speak in opposition of this project? Please come forward. Seeing none, at this time, there's no rebuttal needed. So at this time, I will actually close the public hearing. At this time, I need a motion, if you will, to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Davis and second by Mr. Heath. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries in this case. Okay. So at this time, as a council, you have before you the item that was read by the city clerk for this project. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments by council? I'll start with Mr. Whitmore.
Can I ask you something before you do that? In your motion, can it be to include all of the conditions that were read, please?
Okay. In this case, I'd like to restate, make an effort to make a motion with all the stated conditions. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Well, I'm sorry. Any questions, comments? Go ahead, Mr. Whitmore.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, first, let me just say that I really do appreciate the work that both staff, Madam Attorney, and also the, I'm forgetting the name of them. Starlight. So looking at the project from what was originally submitted and looking at what you have now, it shows that you definitely took the time to listen to everything that everyone had to say, and you came back with, I believe, a much better product. I'm going to ask you to, if you can put that one picture on that shows the townhouses. If you can put that up on the screen, please. And I don't know if the attorney is going to speak or somebody from Starlight, but whoever wants to answer these questions, I'll ask you to come to the microphone.
Sure. Good evening, Joe Ingram, Starlight Homes.
Good evening.
Good evening. Okay, so in looking at this, so.
I'm sorry, what was your name? She didn't get it. Joe Ingram, with Starlight Homes.
So in looking at this example, so there's 5 units attached.
That's right.
Okay, and of course, you're going to have others that's going to have more units attached.
Sure.
So my question is, in looking at the upper part of that has the hardy plank, if you will, to both ends is brick, and the center has the hardy plank. And my assumption is, even with the units that have more units attached, you're still looking at doing it every other, or is it going to be center for the hardy plank?
It would likely be more of a every other type scenario, just to break up some of that massing of the brick, quite honestly. The board and batten hardy that is up in that reverse gable on the front of that unit is, I mean, it is not maintenance free, but it's as close to it as you can get. I mean, it's made from cement, so there's not a whole lot of upkeep associated with it.
Right, and then I also know that the upkeep anyway is going to be provided by the management, because everything is going to be inclusive, so they don't have to worry about cutting grass or any of that.
Yes.
Okay. So the first couple of years is going to be 5 to 7 years. There'd be no maintenance really required anyway. Okay. So which leads me to the next area. If you can bring up the site plan, please. Yes, can you expand that, magnify that some? And I just need to bring that bottom part up. There you go, right there. Thank you. So in looking at your proposed modifications to staff for the conditions, one of the things that we had an opportunity to talk about is that corner, Roosevelt Highway and John Rivers Road. And those are the units that will be backed up to Roosevelt Highway and John Rivers Road, that L. I call it the L. And we talked about the rear of those properties having brick as well.
That's right.
And I didn't hear any comments in reference to that, so I want to give you the opportunity to address
So
that.
what I would say is we, from where I stand, we can do the brick on the rear of the homes. It all, or on the rear of those homes. Our concern is the potential traffic improvements that are at the intersection of Roosevelt Highway and John Rivers Road. There's just, and I know it's not your job to protect the financials of any deal, but we do get to a place in this deal that is the financial breaking point for us. That's probably a $500,000 to $600,000 improvement at that intersection. So I think what I would say is we can contribute some amount of funding towards that signalized intersection.
Oh, I'm not talking about the
No,
signal
I know,
yet. Okay.
I understand. It's just the two do go together for me, if you will. So I guess where I was going is to say that we can do the rear brick on homes if in fact, when we talk about the signalized intersection, if it's a contribution towards the improvement of that intersection based on our percentage impact of our development to that intersection, if that makes sense.
And part of my concern is because of the elevation, and I know you're looking at putting trees and other shrubs and everything else, but it's not going to reach that height.
Sure.
So that's a major concern for me. That's number one. Number two, Mr. Thompson, is he in the house? Now, in talking about the traffic control, okay, now I hear the applicant saying that they would be willing to contribute towards, all right, and I know there has been some communication with GDOT, and GDOT has come out and said what in reference to traffic control there?
They want to put the onus of the traffic control device on the developer.
And that's what, about $1 million project?
I think about 500,000.
500,000, okay. So is there any room for collaboration between GDOT and the developer?
GDOT's not, the last conversation I had with GDOT, they're not willing to take the lead. So it would be on the developer to take the lead in that.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you get, at the time, can you please stand up and have him to come to the mic?
This is what I was referring to. Based on, I think the traffic engineer can give you some sense of what the issue is there. But based on the traffic counts that we've accumulated so far, because you have to do a traffic warrant signal study. And one question is will the study suggest that the light is due now? If the light is needed today before we even come in, then why would the developer be saddled with the responsibility of putting the light in? Because whether we are here or not, the light needs to go in. So if you don't approve this project, I assume that you all still want the light. So that's where I think we've got a little bit of challenge. What we're saying is, hey, we believe that based on our counts and the information we've had to date, that we contribute about 10% more over and above what's already out there now, which we believe does, in all likelihood, mean that a light is warranted just based on the existing traffic counts, not including us. So that's why we have not been a part of the conversations with GDOT, and they have not received the traffic warrant signal study. So I think that there is some room, and my hope is that we can come to something, because what Joe is indicating is that, look, if we have to pay for a light, remember, he won't be paying for the light. Those folks that's living in that community are going to be paying for the light, which means that it gets tagged on to the purchase price of each one of those homes. And we don't want to overprice the homes such that nobody would want to live in the community.
I understand.
We just have that balance to work.
Mr. Thompson, what was done with GDOT? I know before this project even came about, we had conversations about two areas on 29. One was the corner of John Rivers and 29, and the other was the down ramp or the loop going down to Verlin B. Smith.
Correct.
So I know they looked at both. So can you help me understand?
Well, they were waiting to get traffic counts before they moved forward with the when they heard about this development, they paused all their efforts.
Okay, and see that, and there we have the quandary.
So, if I may, Councilman, the one entity that's not in this conversation right now is GDOT.
GDOT.
And I would suggest that we pause on assuming what GDOT will or won't do, because I don't know that anyone here can definitively state that. It is a state highway, that's a fact. And so I think there is a conversation to be had. There have been previous conversations, and Mr. Thompson just made the point very clear that there was one conversation about Johns River and Roosevelt, and then this development came, and we'll need to kind of work through that. And so I think we need a conversation with GDOT for them to weigh in on what GDOT will or won't do based on the existing traffic conditions over and above what this development may add to that traffic count.
And based on the comments by the attorney, we have a engineer that has performed a traffic study.
He is in the process of completing the traffic signal warrant study, so he's already gone out and taken the counts. And what he can see from the counts, I mean, he can speak for himself, but my understanding is what he has accumulated so far seems to suggest that the light is warranted, but I'll let him reply to that if he would so choose.
Can you come up, sir?
You may say, don't get him saying something on record that he hasn't finished his research on, so.
Good evening. I'm Andrew Antweiler with KCI Technologies. As mentioned, a traffic engineer. Work with GDOT often, understand the process that they require to perform a traffic signal warrant analysis. And as mentioned, we did collect traffic counts last week. We wanted to perform those before so that we would be ready to perform a traffic impact study. We have not performed that study at this time. What has been indicated is that we can look at the existing traffic volumes at that intersection. And just today, looking at those volumes just preliminarily, the current volumes at the intersection would be what we call the MUTCD volume warrant, and that is something that GDOT then looks at that criteria to consider whether they support installing a signal or not. So there's a few steps in this process. Just because we meet volumes or a certain criteria is met, there's a lot of factors that GDOT considers before they would give their support to a signal. So hopefully that answers the question or answer any others.
Well, it answers that portion of it, so I understand what you're doing, but I still understand we still need to go back to GDOT, and it sounds as if that conversation needs to be initiated from this group versus GDOT coming to you based on what Mr. Thompson just testified to. Correct?
Yes, typically these studies, you do get involved with the different agencies. This case, you would involve GDOT to review that study and determine what they support.
So now here's the other twist to that, because now we're talking about John Rivers Road and Roosevelt Highway, and the potential of rear brick and no rear brick, depending upon GDOT and the company's decision on whether or not there's going to be a level of contribution. And I'm just trying to make sure that for the record, that we have everything, all our I's dotted and T's crossed, because I know in the past, some years back, there was another project that this body thought the roadway was going to go all the way through, and come to find out that's not the case. So they stopped right at that point, so we were caught off guard on that. And I just don't want to get caught off guard on this. I'm just trying to make sure that we have everything, and I know there you are, Denise, I know Denise, we already communicated prior to the meeting, and I know that there's going to be the study that's going to be performed, but I just need to make sure that the language is in there so that we...
Yes, sir, it's one of the conditions in the proposed ordinance, yes.
Okay. And then the last thing that I wanted to address, I saw where I wrote it down. Denise, there was a proposal by the applicant to change the rental to, was it 10%?
Yes.
10%.
Yes, that's
Okay.
one of the conditions.
And I would like to have that condition changed to 5%. We have been pretty consistent in this city with what we consider is the right amount or percent of rentals, and that's by design by this body. That's by design by this body. And I think I would rather, and I'll make that motion, but I just want to give my explanation for that. And you find that when you have home ownership, you have a different level of appreciation of the home and your level of taking care of it versus a renter. And I just want to maintain what this body has set in motion for the past couple of years of keep make a motion.
If I'm correct, in this case, Mr. Shays, would it not be a substitute motion? It would not be. You can just make an amendment to, okay, in this case. Make an amendment to the motion.
So I'd like to make a motion to amend the motion to rentals at 5% versus the recommended by the proposed.
Okay. Do I need a vote?
10%, right?
It was originally.
Currently 10%, reduce it back to 5%. Yes, sir.
Okay. So the amendment, I don't need to take a vote yet. Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
And then the other thing is, and again,
You need a second.
You need in this case, I actually need a second on that amendment.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. I can take a vote right now. That's just on the amendment. Okay. All in favor of amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries.
Now, also,
Got one opposition, Ms. James, you wasn't looking up.
Nay.
Got one, yeah, I need you to say it now. Okay, go ahead.
And back to the site plan, Madam Attorney. Now, and I know we talked about no, you just had it up there, that's fine. I didn't see the proposed area for, playground area for the children. I know we talked about it at one time, but after talking to staff, I understand why it should not be over there by that stormwater area.
Right. So the way that the condition is crafted by staff, it would have to be along that lineal park. And the location of that, my assumption is that we will have to get that approved through staff when we come in and let them know which one we choose, because they gave us a couple of different choices. And then once we make that choice, I assume we have to show where that is going to be located.
Actually, the condition was modified based on the community input, so they only had to have the passive park because the community didn't want amenities that would increase the volume in the surrounding area. So the only amenity would be the passive park, and that's the condition that's in front of you today.
I really didn't have an opportunity to communicate with the POA, but I do know that when people purchase these houses, they're going to have kids there. And for us to sit here and intentionally not provide something for the children is not right. It's just not right. So even in that passive area, or another designated area, I really think something needs to be looked at. I mean, when you look at 800 plus homes in Durham Lakes, we only have one amenity area. They're not going to be included in that amenity. So they have absolutely nothing. That doesn't make sense. Sir?
I would just add that I think that we could accommodate exactly what you're talking about. I think we can stay out of that linear park area, if you will. Wish we had lot numbers on that, but kind of between the stormwater pond and that 5-unit building next to it, keeping it kind of pulled interior to the development a little bit.
I think you're talking about to the right of stormwater.
Well, yeah, that's both, really, to the one in the back to the right, where you're talking about in that one area by that 5-unit building that's at that hammerhead, or interior, I'm gonna call it Plan View Northwest, where the line of townhomes is as you enter the community between that last townhome and the stormwater pond right there, too. I think either of those two spots could work.
And I'm just going to rely upon staff to work that out, because if you look at the community that I live in, Durham Lakes, most of everyone there is retired. It's not many kids, even though we have some kids, you know, but you're going to see kids there, and we need to have something for them. Are you, Mayor?
Any other member of council? Ms. Jones, go ahead.
Yes, Mayor. I'd like to hear again from the 2 residents that spoke from the HOA community regarding the playground area versus the passive park, because it was my impression, based on your comments, that you were accepting the passive park as what you wanted, that was the feedback that you had gotten from the residents who abut this particular project. So I want to make sure that, I know my colleague is a resident of one of the subdivisions of Durham Lakes, but in particular, those residents who abut the park, what were the comments regarding that?
The comments that I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, they said that they didn't want a place for like teens to hang out at, because that had been an issue at Durham Lakes. Okay, it was like vandalism and stuff, you know, when young kids get together, they, you know, entertain themselves. They were not looking for an area to be created where teens could really congregate. That was the main reason. It wasn't anything to do with a play, you know. I think initially you did have a play area included. Okay, right? And based on the community input, they said, nah, that's not a good idea, and I think they adjusted their plans accordingly.
Mr. Knight, did you have any comment too regarding that question?
Yeah, based on the homeowners that I've spoken with, the changes and what they put forth and everything, we accepted those plans. We accepted the condition. So now we're trying to add something to it. Well, we don't want this project to get rejected because we don't want no commercial or anything in there. From a builder contractor point of view, you only can do so much, and they've went overboard. So the homeowners is satisfied with that. Mr. Wilmore live in the Fairways, but the ones that are gonna be living next to it in Brookhaven, there's nobody here opposed it. So we somewhere have to move on because we can keep adding till the builder pull out. From the community that we can't do nothing about it. I think we're gonna spend a lot of time on this, and I do appreciate what Mr. James Whitmore say, but we have already accepted it. Now we're to go back and accept something else. When are we gonna approve it and get the project on before they pull out? Because the builder has to pull out at a certain point. Everything's based on cost. If you price yourself out of the market, you can't sell the property. You gotta be a balance there. So I'm saying we need to approve this project and move on and stop adding things to it.
And then, Ms. Denise, could you just define what is a passive park? What do we mean by that?
Typically, passive parks are green space that may or may not have amenities. Some of them don't have amenities. They may just have like a walking trail that you can walk along. There's usually trees, but a passive park is usually an area that has green space, but they may or may not have any amenities.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. And then I have one follow-up question, if I may.
No, you still got the floor.
Yes, so I wanted to ask about the stormwater. Could you talk a little bit about what, how that will be designed, the protections against overflow if we were to have a huge storm, or just to ensure that there were no difficulties with the communities that abut that particular area?
For any development that is happening in the city of this scale, it's, the stormwater detention pond is designed by a civil engineer, and it's reviewed by our civil engineers along with a hydrology study. So they would take into account the existing conditions and what is being proposed to make sure that there is no impact to the surrounding area.
And are there opportunities to include green infrastructure so that it would help in absorption for overflow?
This would be designed to the current standards. It may not include that, but it would be designed to the current standards that we hold all development of this similar size to.
Okay. Well, I'd ask if we could just evaluate what those possibilities might be. That would not, of course, add to the cost. That means replacing one thing for another. But to the extent that we can use green infrastructure, that minimizes overflow. And we are, whether you accept it or not you specifically, but you in general, we are having issues with climate and various storms, frequencies of storms, and the degree, a greater degree of the storms. So flooding and over. It is now that we start writing that would you start. What's the
Pervious
surfaces? And that increases the issue with flooding. And given that that has been rural for all of this time. There may be some issues there, but I'd ask that if we just can evaluate that possibility.
Ms. Davis?
Thank you.
Yes. I would just like to make a comment in reference to this project, the time that we've invested. One of the things I'm very impressed with is that the developer, Starlight, paid attention and was very attentive to our citizens and the number of times that you met with our citizens and our concerns and council's concerns, and the amount of time that you've gone back and redone and the 99 conditions that we had on this development. I'm just kidding, it wasn't 99, but being facetious here. I appreciate that process. That's a process that I myself hold dearly to when developers come to Fairburn. You can't come to Fairburn with your own made-up ideas. And initially, we shared that we listen to our citizens, you know, and when we say we listen to our citizens, that means you need to listen to our citizens. And I feel like due diligence has been done on this project. I feel like you have listened numbers of times. I feel like your attorney, Ms. Battle, has been very instrumental in being the guide to get everything that our citizens have asked for. You have a letter from the citizens saying they are in agreement with what is now. And I just appreciate this. In fact, I think this is a classic way leaders That's my comment, Mayor.
Mayor?
Okay, I have a comment first. Having sat through hundreds and hundreds of developments through the city of Atlanta and Fulton County and now the city of Fairburn, the part that I do want to make the members of this body aware of, and I which way to vote, building. And we've got several that are waiting on to find out the status of this project tonight or whatever we decide to take a vote. But I just want to make sure that you're very cognizant of what is it that is at stake. So again, with that being said, Mr. Whitmore, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. And as I sit here and the things that I have identified and that I have spoke of, I'm not speaking just from myself living in the fairways of Durham Lakes. As I got a text message from homeowners in Brookhaven, and I'm going to read it for the record. It says, "Good evening. I wrote an email opposing this development, and Brookhaven was not with this information as Homer stated." That's one. Now, again, I am not trying to find a way that this development is rejected. I want it to be residential, okay? But I think we also have a responsibility for those future homeowners. And in my Zoom call, Ms. Battle and with Starlight, and when we talked about the something for the children, y'all stated on that Zoom call, that's a minimal cost. So we're not talking about something that's going to break the development or have them walk away project. We're talking about something that's minimal cost that's going to help little children enjoy the one area that they live. And if I don't speak up for them, and then when this development is completed and done and the developer is gone, they're coming to us. We're the ones that's sitting up on this dais. And to not have that forethought in looking forward and identifying it and taking care of it at this level is egregious. So that's why I'm asking staff that for this particular area, because I know y'all still going to talk about it, all right, and you're finding the area, this is an opportunity to meet. And yes, the POA has sent a letter approving what they have seen. The PO represent all the citizens, not just the POA. These are going to be new moving into this city. It's our responsibility to look out for all.
Any other comment by council? Go ahead, Ms.
Just for clarity purpose, what is the motion? Is it to,
Well, there was a motion to approve, I thought. And they had a motion on the floor to approve
Was approved with the
all the conditions.
conditions, but the other part,
You had an amendment made to it to reduce rental down to 5%. That's
Right.
the motion right now. I guess-
we just want to get clarity on which of
Okay.
the conditions?
So-
We just want to get clarity on which of
Okay.
the conditions?
So in this case, members of council, in this case, we would actually, if I understood what Ms. Ross is saying, it would actually include the developer modifications?
Yeah, yeah.
In this case, members of council, am I able to, I guess my question would be, would that not be a substitute motion? Would that not be?
I have a question.
Hold on one second, I want to make sure from a point
Was
of,
the motion,
May I have a question?
hold on one second, let me do this first. Is that motion that I'm requesting now, would that require substitute to add all of it from the developer? Or or the existing, what was originally recommended?
You're gonna have to substitute. The original was to accept the conditions
As staff.
expressed by staff. If that's
Correct.
not what you're doing, you're gonna have to
Have a substitute motion.
substitute motion.
Okay, in this case, I need to take a vote on a substitute motion. In this case, what happened before I go yea or nay, I'll ask for comments.
No, I have clarification. I
Okay.
need a clarification.
Okay?
I would like for Denise,
yes.
are the modifications and the conditions, are that the same? Is that the package that, are you in agreement with? Is staff in agreement with those modifications?
The modifications that the developer is proposing?
Yes.
With most of the modification, however, the developer will be solely responsible for the traffic impact study and any recommendations, including improvements in our traffic controls. That would be the sole responsibility of the applicant and/or developer.
And that would be by substitute motion.
That's a current condition, right? So,
Just that one.
and your thoughts on that, Denise?
It should be the sole responsibility of the applicant or developer. So it would be responsibility solely of the developer.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and so
Staff
that,
recommendation is to reject that.
okay, staff recommendation is to reject that substitute motion. So in this case, basically, I have a substitute motion that I need to take and see if it fails. Pass.
so
Well, there was no, we didn't put a substitute motion out there.
Okay, so you're not, okay.
Yeah.
I'm kind of lost, Mayor. If I can find out,
Yeah, I think-
what are they saying that is not?
Let's do this.
Ooh, Jesus.
Hold on for a minute. Here's what we're going to do. Ms. Brookers, come back up. In this case, the motion that was originally set by council, that's what I brought to the floor. What the developers ask you now would require that the developer, basically in this case, not eat all the cost. Is that? Okay.
They have come to council tonight and said they want to modify that condition because they cannot support the cost. It is up to council if you want to
So I'm trying to make sure I do the right actual parliamentary procedure. Do I need to take a substitute motion as a result of that?
I think the first motion needs to die.
First, I need to have okay. I need to take a motion. I need to take a vote for the first motion.
No, he's saying the first motion is dead. Motion needs to be to approve and change number 2 or keep number 2 as is, which is what she has said.
Oh, here's my question, members of council. You want to interject first before I do that?
The crux of this,
Clear about what?
the crux of the issue as it relates to the traffic light, in the conditions as proposed, Starlight would be solely responsible if the traffic warrant study says a traffic light has to go in. They would be responsible under the current condition for the entire cost of that traffic light. That was discussion earlier when Ms. Battle was saying that before the development got here, it was already likely, the traffic engineer stood and explained that today, before these townhomes are built, there are enough vehicles to likely warrant a traffic light. If that condition remains as proposed, Starlight is saying, you're requiring us to pay the entire cost of that, and Ms. Battle is saying that may not be something they're able to do. So they're not able to do. So therefore, they are asking you to modify that condition to say that they are responsible for their portion of the traffic cost. They mentioned earlier that they estimate after the traffic study and their proposed traffic counts, they believe their development will add 10% additional traffic to Roosevelt Highway and John Rivers Road. They would then propose that they should bear 10% of the cost of that traffic study. Now, I have no idea what GDOT's response to any of this will be, but that is what they're asking you to modify, is to say, if we have a certain percentage of traffic at Johns River, allow our cost to be representative of the percentage of traffic that our development is putting on that intersection.
Okay.
That's what they're asking you to modify. Right now, they would have to incur the entire cost of the traffic
I need clarification.
control device
Okay.
solely.
I need a council member to make a motion in this case, whether you're going to include the developer's request or not. And Mr. Whitmore,
Just before you make that motion, though, I just want, Ms. Battle?
Clarification from her, too.
So I'm hearing two things, ma'am, so I just want to just make it crystal clear, okay? There was a motion and a second for the rentals from 10 to 5.
We actually never asked to go to 10. I'm not sure why that got communicated in that way, but don't worry about it. We're fine with 5.
Okay. That was my motion. Now,
Fine with 5.
Okay, that's
it's my understanding, based on the city administrator's clarification, based on this document that was handed to us at the start of this meeting.
Those were my changes.
Okay, and see, that's where the confusion was at, because the packet was one thing, and this just came in.
Right.
So, it's my understanding that what you're asking now is that number 2 be deleted in its entirety. And that number 2, if you go back to the, I guess it's the staff recommendations, I'm assuming you're referencing that.
So to make things even more complicated, we took the staff analysis that was sent over to us, or that, I won't say sent over to her, that Joe had obtained, and my comments were matching those. When she put that up on the screen, that does not seem to track what I have here. But she took what we had, because I sent this to her before, and she's incorporated into what you saw on the screen. The majority, I think you put everything in there that I was asking for on this sheet so that it now matches. The one issue that we did not address, because we knew we were going to address here at the podium, on her list. Forget about this. Let this go. She's already incorporated these items into what you saw on the screen today. So all we're trying to do is get, I think, really two things, maybe three clarified. One, 10% rental drops to 5%. We have no problem with that. Two, we need no more, to be responsible for no more than 10% of the cost for any traffic signal that is required, if anything. In our opinion, GDOT should be paying for the whole thing. But if we have to pay for some portion of it, it should not be more than 10%. Okay. Who bears the remainder of the costs? That's not our issue. But we can only afford 10% of that cost. Okay. And then we just wanted clarity, and I think we've got the clarity. I have to see those conditions roll again, that we have agreed to do the 3-sided brick, but I wanted to make sure that it was okay that we had the little bit of accent material that we were showing on the plan, that you all were fine with that, with the rears being hardy plank. I think that the staff's recommendation didn't really clarify about the rear brick on the units along the perimeter.
L shape.
So I don't know, I didn't see that in what you put up on the board. That's what was, or just doing 10%. But if you tell us we got to do the rear brick and anything over 10%, we've got a problem. And we definitely don't want to get approved if we are supposed to bear the 100% cost of the traffic signal if it has to come in.
And it's
It's a dead deal for us.
And it's my understanding, based on Mr. Thompson's comments and your comments, that y'all were going to communicate with, or the proposal was communicate with, and the rear brick was contingent upon whether or not GDOT worked with the builder for that 10%.
Okay, so let me I think I can make this really clear. That you do only 10%. All the other contingencies, whatever else, irrelevant to us. We're not paying for more than 10% of any traffic signal that would be required, period. If it's anything other than that, then from our perspective, you might as well deny this and commercial whatever will come. But we can't do more than 10%. Those two things for us are married. They go together.
Go ahead, Ms. Brooke, you had something to say?
Yes, if it helps, because the applicant has provided these conditions, we can do a brief presentation of sorts, that if council is open to it, that the request be approved with the proposed ordinance and the modifications, and I can read these modifications that are here right now, along with that 5% that Councilman Whitmore has requested, but staff's recommendation still stands that the developer will be solely responsible for that traffic impact analysis and any traffic control. I just want to make sure that my recommendation is clear on that. And if council wants to do something differently, just as a point, can we get clarity on that piece?
Hold on 1 second. Mr. Lester, did you have something you want to add?
I think you were just speaking solely of the traffic signal, but what about any other traffic control measure that's recommended, that's derived from the study itself?
There was a recommendation, or one of the, because in your staff analysis, that was included as a part of the ordinance. So any of the
Speaking to Mike.
So any of the conditions that you mentioned as a part of your initial review of it, that's included in a part of the ordinance.
And is that their responsibility? That's included as their responsibility?
GDOT may come back and say, okay, we don't want a traffic signal here, but we want something else at the intersection. So that's what I'm saying when they do like the intersection.
Let's say they said they wanted a traffic circle.
A roundabout?
A roundabout. We're not paying for a roundabout.
Okay. So no measures.
We can't pay for a roundabout. We can pay our
10% of any measure. That's what I was trying to get clear, not just the signal. Any measure that they're.
Today, we don't know if the signal is warranted.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So that's why I said, what measure?
First thing we're supposed to be doing is doing the traffic signal warrant study.
Correct.
We have paid for that, and we're fine paying for that.
Yeah.
Everything else,
We need to go for
we don't know what's gonna happen, because GDOT may come back and say they'll pay for it all once if they realize that the signal is warranted regardless of what our problem.
So,
Burdening this project
Yeah.
with a requirement that we have to pay for everything, as opposed to simply saying we have to take care of the traffic impact analysis, which is a regular traffic impact analysis. And as far as the warrant study, that we will complete the warrant study, and we can work cooperatively with regards to the rest. But we're just telling you, we can't afford more than 10%.
Okay, so go ahead, Ms. Jones.
I need clarification from Lester with GDOT. Okay, we don't really know what the situation is going to end up being as it relates to GDOT and what is going to be required at that corner. But what chances are there that GDOT will understand that they need to pay for whatever needs to be there, depending on what the traffic study determines? And I know this is hypothetical.
I can't speak for GDOT.
I know you can't speak for GDOT. In the past, anything like this has happened in the past?
Typically, in the past, I've had two situations. One time it took a death for them to put that traffic signal up at,
Is that the one that I advocated for down here in Campbellton? We finally got
yes,
it?
ma'am, and it met the signal warrant analysis.
GDOT paid for that?
And
They paid for it with quick response funding, but it had to go to the top.
the top level. I know, you were working, we were working.
It had to be on the news and all that kind of stuff like this.
Yeah.
This is not going to get that type of publicity. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to be
Right.
quick about that. Then the other scenario was the one right there at Meadow Glen, which was paid for by the developer. So that's the two situations that I know about since I've been here.
Okay.
So we've had both extremes.
The extremes, yeah.
Okay, so at this point, just so we be clear where we are, we're at, in this case, the recommended motion, or the recommendation of staff is for the developer. We're still back to where we were. For the developer to pay for all
100% as
100%.
opposed to 10%.
That's the staff's recommendation.
Yes, sir.
Members of council, you have before you, before we,
I'd like to make a substitute motion.
okay?
Well, we have,
We even made one motion.
Okay, well, let's make a motion. Can you make a motion that you're talking about? No, go ahead. In this case, you, motion, yes.
If it's helpful, I can read those conditions so that we all are on the same page.
Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's do
Okay.
that.
Clear, so we can be clear about the
Go
motion.
ahead.
can you put it up on the screen? You also have it to put up on the screen, is that correct?
1 second. Zero 727-000-168-1935. The proposed ordinance has the following conditions. Prior to any land disturbance or building permit being issued for the project, the staff comments listed in this report must be addressed and approved by the department. Number one. Number two, if the required traffic impact analysis determines that the traffic improvement or traffic control device are necessary at the intersection of Roosevelt and John Rivers, the developer shall construct the traffic improvements or control devices. A mandatory homeowners association shall be created and shall govern by the declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions. The required buffer detention pond, preserved open space with the property, alley, number 4. Permitted as in the HOA declaration. Number 5, a fence, a minimum 30 feet wide, vegetated buffer will be required on the rear of any parcel adjacent to the existing medium or low-density residential developments. All proposed landscaping and fencing material must be approved by staff. Number 6, a planted buffer and fencing shall be provided along Roosevelt Highway and John Rivers. All proposed landscaping and fencing materials must be approved by staff. Additional landscaping may be required alongside side elevations facing public roads. The coming walking trail shall be constructed of asphalt or some other hard surface material and shall be installed prior to the issuance of the final certificate of occupancy for the first residential building. Number 9, amenities along the walking trail should include the following: passive park, sports court, dog park with equipment, playground, or gazebo. Number 10, pedestrian scale lighting shall be provided along both sides of the external streets throughout the development. The front, side, and rear elevations of the townhouse unit shall be sodded. The entrance shall include ornamental plantings as approved by staff. Under no circumstances shall any mechanical equipment or related elements such as air conditioning units, meter boxes, utilities, HVAC, satellite dishes, or any other similar mechanical equipment or related elements be attached, mounted to any exterior elevation that is visible from the pedestrian view from the required sidewalks along the adjacent private streets. Any mechanical equipment or related elements located at the finished grade shall be completely screened from view with dense evergreen landscaping or peg wall, veneered in brick, indigenous rock, or natural stone with the appearance that is complementary to the architectural of the dwelling. All utilities shall be buried underground. Parking shall be paved or concrete surface. The developer shall have a minimum 5-foot sidewalk and landscape strip between the back of curb along both sides of all external streets and 1 canopy street for each 50 foot of street frontage. Developer standard. The developer shall be required to have a minimum lot size or minimum heated floor area of 1,700 square feet, minimum lot width 24 feet, maximum building height 48 feet. Front yard requirement is 20 feet, rear yard 5 feet minimum, side yard or corner 5 foot minimum, 15 feet maximum. And interior, there shall be no minimum distance between the attached dwelling units and a minimum 10-foot setback on end units, creating a minimum distance of 20 feet between groups of townhouses. Number 18, a minimum 3 and a maximum of 8 units shall be allowed in each row of townhouses. The elevations for the townhouse shall be depicted as on the site plan and shall be in substantial conformity with the illustrations attached herein listed as Exhibit C. The applicant is asking, development standards. The applicant has no issue with the development standards, including the following: provide architectural detailing to enhance the entrance of the building facade by breaking it into distinct plans that are offset with the main building facade. Porches and stoops can be used to orient the house toward the street and promote active and interesting neighborhood streetscapes. Alternative different textures, colors, materials, and a distinct architectural treatment to add visual interest while avoiding dull and repetitive facades. Integrate varied roof lines along the use of sloping roofs. Modulate building heights, gables, dormers, or other architectural solution. Include architectural features such as eaves, awnings, canopies, corners, treatments, or entrances and windows that provide shade, providing passive cooling, reduce daytime heat gain. Eaves will not be required at vertical shutdowns between the individual townhouses. Foundation shall be brick or natural stone. Where another type of structural material is used, it shall be faced with brick, cast stone, or natural stone no less than 6 inches deep. No vinyl or ephes shall be permitted. The exterior materials on the dwelling shall be brick through the second floor plate laying on the front and sides. While multiple exterior materials are used on the side dwelling, they shall only be combined on each facade horizontally, the heavier material below the lighter. The rear and side facade shall be the same construction material, the same exterior finish, and the same exterior as the front facade. Porches and stoops, where facing the streets or open space, shall be between 4 feet and 7 feet deep. The doors and windows shall be rectangular in orientation, with the height of the door or window opening greater in its width where facing the street. The dwelling shall have pitch roofs meeting the following standards. Pitch roof shall be sloped no less than 6 and 12, except with the pitch roof structures for attached sheds, porches, stoops, maybe sheds, with pitch no less than 2 and 12. The pitch roof shall be clad in shingles, natural slate, wood shingles, except when using metal, which may be used provided that is complementary to the architectural style. The eaves of the pitched roof shall overhang the exterior walls a minimum of 12 feet inches. Eaves shall be required at the vertical step down between the individual townhouses. The design facade facing the streets, almost done, shall further, subject to the requirements as provided. A principal entrance shall be a porch or stoop with face of the street, preserved open space. Exterior stairs shall be enclosed with brick, concrete, indigenous stone, or natural stone. Facade shall be articulated at intervals a maximum length of 40 feet high to avoid blank walls. The facade shall be no less than 15% glazed in clear glass. Doors, windows, or upper floors shall align with those below. Porches or stoops shall be covered with a pitched roof or structure. Porches or stoops shall not be enclosed with glass, plastic, or screen wire. Off-street parking. Doors of each residential garages shall contain decorative garage-style architectural elements that are complementary to the architecture of the townhouse. The required enclosed residential parking garage may be integrated into the architectural design of the dwelling unit or detached. Detached residential parking garages shall be located in the rear. The residential parking garage shall be set back a minimum of 25 feet from the back of curb of the adjacent street to accommodate for vehicular driving, parking in the driveway without impeding pedestrian access on the adjacent sidewalk. Garage doors shall be recessed at least 1 foot behind the front wall panel of the dwelling unit, or a second-story element over the garage door shall be provided that extends at least 1 foot behind the front wall panel. All front-loading garages shall have decorative garage doors with a minimum of 2 enhanced architectural features, including windows, raised panels, decorative panels, arches, hinge straps, or other architectural features. Flat panel garage doors should be prohibited. The applicant has asked for the following modification. That the following statement be included, notwithstanding the above development standards, the applicant shall have the option to plat the community with no individual lot, but rather a minimum unit footprint of 1,167 square feet, provided that all areas outside of the building footprint. The applicant has asked that on paragraph 20 be deleted.
Do we have that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So in this case,
Maybe us have that.
I don't believe they have a copy of this.
We do.
what you just read.
Yeah. So it's,
So,
And we do have copies.
Okay.
so, just so I be real clear in this case, it's. Go ahead and read it. He wants to read it. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
I don't think that they match the numbers. That's what the problem is. That's what's going on. They don't match the numbers.
oh, yeah,
But I think,
that's confusing.
Right. I don't want it confused because the stuff that's on here.
She recommended it.
I think there's only one item that didn't get addressed.
Okay.
In her comments, and so we would ask for, based on the staff's recommendation, she's now read all the recommendation. Here's what we're asking for modifications to.
Okay.
One, in regards to, if we can go back, it's a little hard, can you make them a little bigger? I'm getting old. I got a birthday on Wednesday, I can't see that small. Can you make it a little bigger? Can you make it a little bigger?
Which screen do you want?
Go to the first screen, where she had number 2. Yes, can you make that a little bigger? Yes, if the required traffic impact on that's the first one that we need amended. If the required traffic impact analysis determines that traffic improvements or traffic control devices are necessary at the intersection of Roosevelt Highway and John Rivers Road, the developer shall construct the shall be responsible, this is how we would prefer it, shall only be responsible for up to 10% of the cost to construct the traffic improvements or traffic control devices.
okay.
That's the first thing that we would ask. Okay.
Okay.
All right. If we go to the next page, when we get to the eaves, if you can make it a little bit bigger, that would be item 11C. Yeah. Okay. The eaves of the pitch roof. Yeah, great. You were good. The eaves of the pitch roof shall overhang the exterior walls a minimum of 12 inches, provided, however, the eaves shall not be required. That's correct. Okay, that's correct. Number 12. We asked, and let me make sure. Number 12. My paper's here, hold on. Number 12 in what I had originally was, it was 12I. Only 12I were we asking to be deleted. She read all of 12 in, okay, and go to I. Go to the next page. She had deleted them all, but she read them actually all in. You read them all in, correct? Okay. And it was I that we were asking, which was the stoops. One issue was that the porch or stoops shall be raised a minimum of 2 feet from the average sidewalk grade. I think you deleted that. She deleted that.
Okay.
That's what we asked for. So we're good on that one.
A through G remain, even though scratch through remain.
Right. She scratched them out up there, but what she read included those. And she left out the one that we didn't want to comply with. So that's fine.
That's fine.
Item 2, we asked to be deleted, which was the 60% rear entry requirement. That's gone. She had that gone. And we agree on that? Before I sit down, because I know it's been long, I don't want you to, this is your moment. That it? Okay.
And I'm sorry, did we miss the reading of the 4-sided brick on the perimeter?
And that would be something that you all would have to add. We agree to that. Face Roosevelt and Johnson Road, provided that we get item 2 addressed, which is the 10% issue. So I think we're down to 10% issue.
Just so I'm real clear, the motion from the city is to stay where we are, in this case, that would to put the onus all in the developer, right?
Correct.
Okay. Ask you a question, because here's, let me ask him a question. The minimum proposed cost, or maybe I should say the maximum, if the city were to have to actually come in this case, contribute pretty much most of it, give me a rough estimate of how much money we're talking about.
I wouldn't know until we come from it, but just for instance, the one on Meadow Glen, I think it cost around $700,000.
Okay.
So a million.
Mr. Hood, before I go in there, here's the question, Mr. Commitments.
I couldn't tell you.
I
I just wanted to add something for context. This is a rezoning request from PD commercial to PD residential. That says that today, that property is PD commercial. If this development, for whatever reason it may be, does not go forward, the property is commercial. Not required to come back before this council for approval to put a warehouse there, to put any other commercial development there, would not require council approval because it is currently commercial. I just want you to be aware that that is the current condition, and if this or some other project did not go forward as residential, someone could build a commercial development there. It would not require council approval, and it would not require a traffic light.
Question?
More contribution.
Okay, so could we just approve the rezoning without the project? Is that at all possible, to just approve the rezoning? And if there is additional work or discussion regarding the traffic signal, because we don't have the study, we don't know the results of the study, and we don't know the cost if it were to dictate a traffic signal, and we don't know how DOT will respond.
Typically, those traffic studies are not completed at this point of a development project.
Okay.
So you don't typically have a completed traffic study in advance of the development being approved. With that said, I'll defer to Ms. Ross or Ms. Brookins as to whether or not you could just rezone the property.
No, you can't do that. No, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
We need to.
So that would not be a practical option.
But you do have the
Okay.
amend the condition so that the language only requires a traffic study. And then the results of that traffic study can be, addressed at a later time.
Okay. That
So
sounds
that's
great.
my substitute
Yes.
motion.
Yes. Second.
Is it motion?
I second.
Substitutes make, okay, well.
That's my motion.
Well, what,
She just.
she just,
Well, okay, that's my motion then, not a substitute. That's my motion.
I want to make sure, Valerie,
Yeah,
would you restate that?
attorney.
Say it again.
To amend condition number 2 so that the requirement is for a traffic study analysis to be conducted, and the results of that traffic study analysis will be addressed by staff at a later date.
That's my motion.
That's your motion.
Second.
That's my motion.
Motion been made and second. Mr. Whitmore?
I
Let me
just-
write it. Let me, go ahead. It's on the floor. Go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure, so I don't have a problem with the motion, okay? But we needed to make sure that the four-sided brick for the L was included in that motion because that is not currently in the language that we have now.
Wait, say that again, the what, the L?
Hold on for a minute.
I'm trying for clarification.
The L that I'm talking about is 29 John Rivers Road. Those units that back up, and you call it an L,
So are you recommending, or you're proposing that brick only be required for the rear, four-sided brick only required for those lots that are adjacent to John Rivers and Roosevelt?
right, which the attorney has already agreed to.
Agreed to, so I thought.
Assuming the 10% though.
Well, but
and
they're
we-
going to be dealing with that after.
Hold up for a minute. Hold up for a minute. Stop. Let's stop for a minute. Go ahead, Mr. Wood. Go ahead, sir. I thought we had already,
So the condition Councilman Whitmore is referencing, which says that on the units that face Johns River and Roosevelt Highway, the backs of those units that are visible from Johns River and Roosevelt will, unlike the other units in the development, have four-sided brick, meaning that the rear of those units will be brick. So as you're driving along Roosevelt or Johns River, for those units, you'll see brick, right? That is separate and apart from the traffic
Yeah.
issue. The traffic issue is now the motion Councilwoman Porter-Jones
Porter-Jones.
just made. That you just made.
Yes.
That addresses that.
Yes.
We are including, and Ms. Battle, your applicant does not have an objection to that, is that correct?
Don't include those separate motions.
That's separate motion.
that's a separate, that's,
Number 2,
Okay. It's a separate motion, but they are in agreement.
but let's carry this
So-
motion, then she can make the.
Call for the vote.
okay, in this case, yeah, I'm gonna call for the vote, point of, in this case. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. That motion carries. Now, what were you saying about the second?
Now, if you want to amend something about from 3
The
sides.
four-sided brick for those units along the L, as Councilman Whitmore refers to it, which is the corner of Johns River and Roosevelt. The units that back up to that intersection
Right.
would have four-sided brick, unlike
So,
Yes, I make a motion that for the units that back up to Highway 29 and John Rivers Road, be four-sided brick. All those units that are facing both John Rivers Road and 29.
Second.
Motion is made and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Oppose?
oppose.
Are they facing the back?
Is that 2 noes?
Yes.
2 noes. So that motion,
That's backing up to them, not facing them, right?
That's back and right.
so that motion carries 42. That motion carries 42.
I believe that's it.
And that's just for that. Are they going to adopt anything else?
No.
Oh, we're done.
Read everything
The only thing you did was number 2 and that. So are you trying to approve the rezoning?
It's voted on.
disapprove.
Yes.
That's approved. Can I get a motion?
I move that we do the rezoning, all the conditions, and the 2 conditions we just approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I'll let them clear out a little bit first.
Is it December yet?
I'm sorry, I'm just teasing. She still got to give me a clean copy regardless of what everything that passed. Okay, the next item is item number 2. Lord have mercy. Text amendments approved to open and continue hearing on the proposed text amendments until the next regular scheduled meeting on December 11, 2023.
Hi, this one will be much shorter. Staff is asking that the public hearing be continued until the next meeting to allow the Planning Commission time to review the recommendation. There was a lack of a quorum at the last Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, so the item was not allowed to be presented. So before we can present it to you, we need to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission to get a recommendation. So I just need a motion to approve the continuance of the public hearing.
Yeah, before your item read by the clerk for a motion for a continuance, is there a motion?
So move.
Second. All in favor, Mr. Heath made a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item.
Next item is the appointment of Attorney Brandon Price Crum to the Development Authority of Fairburn and the Downtown Development Authority. Council approved this Attorney Brandon to the DDA and the DA board.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Mr. Brandon Crum comes to us from Montgomery, Alabama, and he is a part of the Serious Law Group who relocated to the city of Fairburn at 4 Northwest Broad Street. They bring a wealth of experience. He brings a wealth of experience, and so it is our recommendation that he is added to the development, Downtown Development Authority and Development Authority of Fairburn.
Okay. Members of council, you've heard the item read for a recommendation from Mr. Price Crum to the Development Authority. Is there a motion?
So move.
Is there a
Second.
Any questions or comments?
And Mr. Crum is here.
Okay. You want to come up, you want to just greet us, sir? We all know who you are.
Your turn. Well, I came to you during the last council meeting, and I told you that this is a community that I want to be ingratiated in. We have been accepted by all of the council thus far, and we have been extremely overjoyed by the reception that we have gotten from the citizens in this community, and we just want to continue to be a part of it. I myself have 2 buildings that I own down in my hometown of Greenville, Alabama, and I look forward to continuing to help move the progress of the development of the downtown area forward in Fairburn.
Great.
Awesome.
Members of council, anyone have any questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Next item, thank you, sir.
The next item is a resolution to submit an application request for 2024, 2025, and 2026 CDBG project funding. This is for 2024, 2025, and 2026 for the Malone Street Pedestrian Improvement Project, the Orchard Street, Strickland Street Pedestrian Improvement Projects, and the Coral Roberts Park Expansion Project, and for other related purposes.
Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Fulton County Department of Community Development is currently soliciting applications from municipalities that participate in the county's community development cooperation agreement for both 2024 and the 2025 program years. In doing so, they're requiring a resolution be approved by Mayor and Council of all subrecipients to apply for 2024, 2025, and 2026 CDBG project funding. For 2024, we're proposing the Malone Street Pedestrian Improvement Project. We're requesting $315,000. 5 request. The project is the Orchard Street, Strickland Street Pedestrian Improvement Project, and we're requesting $315,000. 26 be the Coral Robertson Park Expansion Project, and we're requesting $430,000.
Members of council, you've heard the item read by the city clerk. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion is made by Pat Powell. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Smallwood. Any comments or questions by council? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Next item.
The next item is a resolution to modify the City of Fairburn's T-Splosh 1 project list. This is a request for mayor and council approval of the resolution authorizing the modification of the T-Splosh 1 project list and any other related purposes.
Go ahead, sir.
During the development of the T-Splosh 1 project list, the City of Fairburn aspired to construct the Rivertown Road Connector roadway project, which will be a connector road that will connect connectivity between Rivertown Road and Verlin B. Smith Road. It was also the desire to provide which would tie into that proposed connector road. Neither project was able to advance because of the Ferndale residential development. We didn't do a protective buy, so they got to it for us, and hence we had to table those projects. It was not until the development of, well, after the development and enactment of T-Splosh 2 that we came up with a secondary alignment and came up with another alignment for the Park Road secondary access road, which we now are working on. So this one, well, this is kind of a conjunction of two, but for this one, we're asking to modify the project list. The T-Splosh 1 project list should be modified to remove the Rivertown Road connector from the project list, and the Park Road project should be changed to design only. So that's the request for this one.
Members of council, you have before you the item that's been read by the city clerk. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Comments or questions by council?
Yes, I have a question. Okay, so in T-Splosh 1, did we have, was that the design only?
No.
In 1?
It wasn't classified as design only, so we're classifying it now as design only, and we're going to move it forward in T-Splosh 2 as construction. We'll get to that on the next one.
In the next one, okay, all right, okay.
Any other member of council got a question? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Next item.
Resolution to modify the City of Fairburn T-Splosh 2 project.
The Brook Road extension.
Brooks Drive.
Brooks Drive extension. So that's right off of Ferndale.
So, right.
So that's what
Back
I
of
was
Ferndale,
referring to earlier.
Right. It currently terminates at, what's that, Fisher?
Yes.
Street. We want to take that and design it to tie into where it terminates right beyond New Beginnings. So that's.
Question. Okay, so the numbers, T-Splosh 1 versus T-Splosh 2, that's in the list iteration, right? It's not the priority.
No. Well,
Okay.
T-Splosh 1 is during that 5-year time period. So that really expired for the funding that comes from T-Splosh 1. Now we're going to start getting funding. Well, we've started getting funding from T-Splosh 2.
Okay.
So we did a design where some of the design was paid for that Park Road with T-Splosh 1 funds. The conclusion of that design is going to be paid for, and the construction is going to be paid for with T-Splosh
Okay.
2 now that it's been approved.
Great. And then, given that that subdivision is now there, was the original idea about that Park Road, is that completely modified because of the subdivision? And what does that look like now?
So now we're going through the Renaissance Festival property instead of going through that. That was vacant. So that was going to be a connector road, connect Rivertown and Verlin B, and we're just going to tie in the back of it at Park Road to extend it. But now we're taking that extension to a different alignment through Renaissance Festival property.
And remind me, do we already have that, we've had those discussions and negotiated that, and?
Well, it's ongoing discussions. We're modifying the plans based on those discussions. So once those are being finalized, then we'll go back to the owner again and do the right-of-way acquisition before we can finalize the plans.
Okay.
That's currently underway.
All right, okay, thank you.
Okay, she beat me to the question, or clarification I was going to explain. right-of-way process that will make, but that, great question. Any other members of council that have a question? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Next item.
Next item is the 2024 annual subscription under supplemental power supply policy, and this is between MEAC Electric Authority and the City of Fairburn. They're requesting mayor and council approval of the 2024 annual subscription under supplemental power supply policy between MEAC and the City of Fairburn.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Evening.
This is an annual agreement that the projections provide to us identified needs for both supplementary power and reserve for this year. The supplementary power product reflects the value of capacity with energy priced at the hourly market, while the reserve capacity product is the capacity price only. Fairburn has used this method for years to ensure that there's adequate power throughout the wintry months. Approval of this policy will designate MEAG as our agent to acquire any combination of resources to optimize our supplementary power supply requests. So at this time, staff requests mayor and council approval of the 2024 annual subscription on the supplementary power policy between MEAG and the City of Fairburn, and authorize the mayor to execute the
I didn't hear who the second one, Mr. Heath.
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments by council? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you, Ken.
Next item.
Next item is the downtown beautification rotary town clock. This is a request for mayor and council approval to install a vertical post clock within the downtown historic commercial district at the Fairburn Education Campus, and a revised amount not to exceed $42,604.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item that is brought before you is we are revisiting in April of 2023, excuse me. We brought before you a beautification project of the Verdon clock. It is a commission clock that was brought to us by a city council member, Whitmore. The commission clock was estimated at $37,000. And that was the initial estimate that was given to us by the company. After hearing from the council, it was a recommendation to include the chimes as well as to have the clock installed in the downtown area with plaques commemorating historic elements or those who wanted to participate in and have a piece of history, so to speak. Those additional costs brought the costs up to $42,000. Don't have my glasses on, excuse me, $42,604. So we are coming back before council to amend the costs and to obtain your approval for the increase of $5,604.
Members of council, you heard the item read by the city clerk for a rotary clock. Is there a motion?
So move.
There's a second?
Second.
Motion's made and properly second by Mayor Pro Tem. Any questions or comments by council? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item.
The next item is the engagement letter for the Economic Development Services. This was a request for mayor and council authorizing the city administrator to execute the engagement letter between Urban Plus Universe, LLC, and the city of Fairburn for various economic development services in an amount not to exceed $36,000 for fiscal year 2024.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The agreement before you is to continue our consulting services with Urban Pulse. This is a budgeted item that comes out of the city administrator's budget, and we're asking for it to be for the entire FY24 fiscal year, starting October 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2024.
Okay, members of council, you had the item read by the city clerk for an engagement letter for economic development services. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments by council? Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, so this is an increase from last year, right? I think it was like 24, 26 last year.
Last year, the monthly rate was $2,500 per month. This contract is $3,000 per month.
Okay, all right. Now, tell me the difference, because we're getting ready to engage what is it? Community development, a development company that will help us with our strategic
Economic development?
economic development company.
Yes,
So tell me
so-
the difference between this contract and,
Thank you, very good question. So that is to revise our economic development strategic plan, which is our holistic plan for economic development throughout the city that was last revisited in 2016. So we need to bring that plan current. You typically do so, and you approved at the last meeting an outside vendor to help consult with that. This Urban Pulse contract has been in place in the previous fiscal year, and that's Mr. Christopher Pike, who consults with the city, not on the development of the overall plan, but in the execution of it. Development deals, adding consulting around specific opportunities, how we approach our catalytic sites. He works very closely with Ms. Abernathy. He works also with the Development Authority. So his is more on the operational execution part of it, whereas what you referenced previously is about the strategic plan overall.
okay, great, thank you.
Any other comments, council? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Next item.
The next item is the network infrastructure, security, and access control installation of the city administration building. This is a request for mayor and council approval for the purchase and installation of network cabling infrastructure, cameras, and access controls for classroom building 2 at the Fairburn Education Campus located at 314 Northwest Broad Street in an amount not to exceed $117,155.04, utilizing the Georgia statewide contract vendor GC&E Systems Group.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
As you know, we are doing renovations to the Classroom Building 2 at the Fairburn Education Campus. This is the next step in that process in order to install cabling and security controls in that building. The previous tenant left it vacant, and so we have to install and purchase all new network cabling and data to be efficient and to support, no, we don't, that's not, to support the city functions at this building.
Members of council, you have the item read before you from the city clerk. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion, any comments or questions by council? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Next item.
The next item is a purchase and installation of Cisco Merrick equipment. Request for mayor and council to approve a 5-year contract with TD Synsnet Capital to lock in the installation rate of $95,976.04 per year.
Go ahead, sir.
So to follow up on the conversation that we had during our budget presentations, we have done the legwork and are presenting the Cisco Meraki equipment to be a part of our citywide infrastructure renovations. This deal with Cisco, who is another state, will allow us to purchase the equipment upfront now, which will get all of the pieces of equipment now, and we'll have a lease deal for the next 5 years of about $96,000, which is less than what we budgeted for in the FY24 budget. So with this equipment, we can now start in the next phase of the network infrastructure renovations.
Members of council, you've heard the item read from the city clerk. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments by council?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So what's the difference between item 11 and 12?
So item 11 is just pertaining to the work that we need to do to make the Classroom Building 2 functional for staff. Right now in that building, there are no switches, there's no rack. We had to get Comcast to bring internet. There's no data, LAN cables, Ethernet cables to have any sort of connectivity in the building. Item 11 is to get that GC&E to provide the racks, to run all the cables, to input all the cameras and the key fobs like we have in this building, in that building. Item 12 is the system-wide renovations of every switch, every Wi-Fi device, all the adapters we have around the city and every city facility that we have. We have about in every building that we have different IT components that we need to switch out and to upgrade. So one is dealing with what
Construction Company for construction of Fire Station number 23 located at 5650 Milan Road in an amount of $4,792,767 with an owner's contingency of $239,638.35 for a total construction budget of $5,032,405.35.
we are very excited to be here tonight, to be at this milestone of this project, after a successful RF or ITB process and rebid, we have been able to select a contractor to construct our Fire Station 23. We have both members of the design team and the contractor is here tonight to just as show of how important it is for them to do this project for the city of Fairburn. Chief is ecstatic. So we are just anxious to get this phase of the project started, and after that, any other questions that council may have.
I have a question.
Hold on one second, I'm gonna bring the item to the floor first. Members of council, you have an item that's, item number 13, award of a Fire Station 23 contract for construction. Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
Motion is made and second by Mr. Heath. Any questions about comments? Go ahead, Mr. Heath.
Can you explain to me what the owner's contingency of $239,638.35?
Absolutely. Normally, when you do construction projects, you have what you call a contingency fund. And this is owner contingency, means it's the city's contingency and it's our contingency to control how that contingency gets used. Because in human life, things happen, and especially in construction. But so that fund, normally that percentage is between 5 and 10% of the overall value of the project. So that's where that 5% contingency came from, for the city to be allowed to use that to handle things that may pop up during the case of the project.
Any other questions about members of council?
Could you just talk a little bit about the timeline?
We're after tonight and we get the contract signed, we'll be doing some kickoff meetings, and then we'll have a more definitive timeline from Benning and their team once they're able to purchase and get equipment and supplies lined up. And we'll be able to come back with a timeline on groundbreaking and construction to start. So I guess I should pause here and let me have them come up now so I can introduce the team since they're here tonight. But the definitive timeline we're working on. They waited so patiently, so it's the least we could do. Royce, you want to?
Go ahead, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Rice Elliott. I'm president of Benning Construction Company, and have my project team here with me this evening. I have Anthony Zito, who is our director of construction, Paul Shivers, who is our head estimator, who put everything together, and Larry Highfield is going to be going ahead and running the project as it moves along. We are extremely excited to be here, and in regard to the timeline, I know everybody is very, very excited and wants to know what that's going to be, but we do need to go ahead and get purchase orders and some contracts let, so we can go ahead and get those material deliveries back in so we can go ahead and get the job started. Unfortunately, with things being a little bit unsettled out there in the manufacturing world, nailed down.
No, I was going to introduce them. Sorry.
Okay.
So this is part of the architect team that's been here before. They've done a lot of the. So let me do this. So this is He's done a lot of hard work. They've done a lot of hard work. They're from P.O. Wayshaw architect team. So I'll let them.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, good evening. I'm Hamilton Holmes with Piper O'Brien, her architects. This is my colleague, Ian Halsey. And Ian's actually the architect. I'm kind of like the relationship manager. But we work closely with Dana and Chief Robinson to help pull the initial design together. And fortunately, their price came in to be right around the budgeted amount that you all were looking for. We've actually worked with Benning Construction before on many other projects. So we think we'll be a great team working together to help deliver this fire station for you all and for the citizens of Fairburn.
Okay. And then lastly, I don't know if you were here earlier, but I'm asking and constantly asking about any green building, how are we going to be energy efficient, to ensure that all of that is included in the design and construction of the building. So have you thought a little bit about that and how that's going to be incorporated?
We've included some aspects in the project from the first phase. We talked about having the charging stations, which is important to Mayor and Council. We've talked about making some future allocations on the roof for what we could do in the future, in a future phase. We've also talked about what maybe some of the fixtures or finishers could look like to be energy efficient. We, as to Bryce's comment, we have to nail down, he has to nail down, I'm saying he now, he has to nail down some of those components with his suppliers, but we are having those conversations to finalize what that'll look like.
All right, thank you. I'll be looking for that. Thank you.
And on the question I have, if having dealt with, I've worked for Fulton County Procurement Department, having dealt with a couple of their, multi-million-dollar fire stations, the most one that I can remember is on Fulton Industrial and I-20 there. I just don't remember your company being listed in the bid to bid on that. Could you give me a couple of the major projects that you built here?
Which ones would you like?
The closest one to this city.
I'm not being flippant. We did just recently completed the Publix down at Arbor Springs.
Okay.
We went ahead and did a shopping center over in Sonoya.
Gotcha.
As far as other public projects, we've done multiple libraries in Douglasville, Augusta, Commerce.
Gotcha. Good enough.
Yeah, we did Villarica as well. So have a lot of different projects, and we are really excited to do this one.
Okay. That's the only question I had. Does any other member of council have a question? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll start with our council comments. I'll start with Mr. Pat Pallin.
I don't have anything to say.
Okay. Mr. Smallwood.
No comments this evening. Good evening.
Okay.
Good night.
Mr. Heath.
No comment.
Okay. Ms. Porter Jones.
No comments.
Mr. Whitmore.
Yes, comment. I'd just like to say that.
Hold on one second. Gentlemen. Ask her, could you? Okay. Go ahead, sir.
I would just like to say that how could he have done that? But when he identified his sickness, it was recorded in his church, and he used the size as his premise for what he was talking about, and he had a live illustration of it, and it was so moving. It moved everybody within the church for his going home service, and he will be missed. But in communicating with the gentleman that's taking over for him and also his wife, they plan on working to rebuild, revitalize, and keep that legacy going at Fairburn Tire. So we're happy that because of his death, that we still have that business that's still going to be in the city of Fairburn. So that's a plus and a plus. And then my final comments I would like to say is that I would like to thank all of the citizens that came out to vote for this last election. And I will say that this is my third time around, and I have never experienced what I experienced this time. It was rough, it was tough, but as I said to some of the other citizens, we're looking forward for healing within our community now. And I would say to those that voted for me and those that didn't, I represent all citizens of Fairburn. And my number is open to anyone and everyone. And you have utilized that number as you have tonight in reference to one of the subjects that was before us tonight, identifying what you knew and what you didn't know. So I just want to say thank you for another 4 years. And believe me, immediately after the celebration, even had some people there that is already ready to bring other projects to the city. And I'm looking forward to seeing those projects come before this administration. And Ms. Tony and I, we already had a conversation and just looking forward to it. So again, I would like to say thank you to the citizens for the opportunity to serve for another 4 years.
Ms. Davis?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The citizens and participated in the voting process. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for allowing me to serve you another 4 years. Thank you so much.
And I'd just like to, again, Mr. Whitmore mentioned Mr. Weaver that owned the tire shop right up the street, just a phenomenal man, if I may say myself. Thousands and hundreds of bikers from Florida, Carolina, I mean, from everywhere. Homegoing was clearly a testament to the way this man lived. All they could talk about was how many men he brought to Christ, this bike club. So just we're going to miss that gentleman and that pillar in our community. I just want to say congratulations to the council members that were reelected for the city of Fairburn. I want to thank again, as you've already heard, the voting process in the city of Fairburn. I want to also congratulate, she's not here, Councilwoman-elect Samantha Hudson, who's our new member of this body. I also want to congratulate here today in our midst is Councilmember-elect Hunter from the city of Tyrone. Thank you, sir, for being here today. And then I think, again, we're looking forward to, I believe it's December the 2nd, we have a Christmas tree lighting and fireworks show. So if you would please bring your families and children out as we look forward to, in this case, bringing our city, again, one Fairburn, one family into a unity. I want to just mention, too, in closing, ladies and gentlemen, you saw basically an example today of a scenario where, in this case, a controversial project to some degree, in this case, where we were able to, despite the different perspectives on the project, the level of professionalism that we remain and professional toward each other as well. And so I'm looking forward to us to maintaining that type of dialogue, being able to disagree without being disagreeable. And so I want to thank the members of council for that demonstration again of the level of efficiency we've been able to build and that culture that we've been able to build in our city. I want to also thank the city staff and me and the city manager and all that allowed our employees to leave on the day before Veterans Day. That was a gesture from the mayor and council as a result of us not only a job well done throughout the year, but specifically for a job well done at the Fairburn Festival, where many of our employees came to work at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And so that was just a small token of appreciation by mayor and council and the city staff. And I want to thank the city administrative staff for that. With that being said, Mr. City Attorney, we don't have an executive session, or do we?
We do.
You do? Okay. Okay.
All the bosses, you don't have to.
Okay, to discuss.
I can do it in 3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I mean, so what I need to know, if we go into
I
executive.
don't want to overpromise.
No,
You did already. I think you did already.
no, but I'm saying I need to get a motion, whether it's real estate or personnel.
This litigation, it won't be longer than 10 minutes.
Litigation. Okay,
I think I can do it in 5 minutes.
okay. Members of council,
I'm gonna try.
can I entertain a motion to go into executive session for a litigation matter?
So move.
There's a second. All in, Mr. Heath, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Have a great night.
Have a great night. Let me put my pocket.
back up?
Members of council, can I entertain a motion to go back in the
Motion to, you can adjourn it. I put motion to, come out of the executive session and reconvene into the regular. Good.
Members of council, can I entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Motion is made and properly seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nobody.
No way, Jose.